And this is really what we're talking about when we're talking about the future of elections. And this is something that a recent Rift Valley Institute report, a research report from South Sudan has talked about in detail, and something we definitely pick up on in the course. But actually, I just wanted to highlight where the dynamics that we should be watching actually are. And I think these dynamics to watch are actually at the borders, not here in Juba. And fundamentally, these are connected to two things. Firstly, of course, the war in Sudan as this interconnected political economy, but also the commercial investments of the privatized state here in South Sudan. So firstly, thinking about the borders and the Sudan war, if the rapid support forces do create what looks like a possibility of a real borderland monopoly along the entire corridor of the Sudan and South Sudan borders and circling round through into Western Bahr el Ghazal's new mining spaces around Raja, where they are already operational. This will put both the Sudan Armed Forces and Kiir's governments under real political pressure, if not already. And the risk is that the rapid support forces will be able to extend their forms of extractive self-resourcing along this incredibly useful space, most obviously controlling oil pipelines, but of course extending commercial enterprises across what is an extremely lucrative set of natural resource territories. And I mean, we can see this with the rapid support forces moving into Western Bahr el Ghazal, looking at the mining routes and the opening up of new mining speculations across that region, including into Northern Bahr el Ghazal. And we can see this kind of similar ceding of territorial ground from the south as well. So with Uganda and the UPDF now already annexing bits of the borderland of South Sudan, particularly at Kajo-Keji, under similar grounds, really interestingly. And this shifting border has not necessarily been commented on if you focus primarily on the politics from the center of the state. UPDF is now, of course, in the last week, fortifying Juba, I quote, as if it was their own country, which is very handy, under this operation called Silent Guardian. So there's tensions here over not just borderlands, but over who gets protected by whom in the region. And the second dynamic I wanted to highlight is that we need to be watching very closely these securitized private commercial fiefdoms, I would say, that are springing up across the very large territory of southern Sudan. These constitute extensive privatization, basically, both of state wealth, but also the corporatization of resource extraction by state actors. We can see this most particularly in across its borderlands with Kenya. We can also be looking at Raja and these new mines opening up around Northern Bahr el Ghazal and the extractive economies across the borderlands into southern Darfur with the RSF. We should be very carefully looking at this developmentalist kind of regionalization, commercialization that proceeds essentially on a licensing basis from Juba as the state has retrenched with less oil wealth to disperse, and it's now selling essentially the licenses to produce this developmental commercialization. We should be looking at the licensing of water, of small dam project causing absolute chaos across the Equatorias, but are incredibly lucrative, and land leasing, which is proceeding, it appears, on a much more rigorous basis, like back to the kind of global land grab eras of the late 2000s. Some of this is involved in kind of the two competing models of developmentalism, both kind of commercial like resource extraction, very anti-climate change sensitive, and then the somewhat more interesting attempts to privatize and commodify land and space and biodiversity in conservation projects. There's two competing forms of developmentalism going on at the moment from South Sudan.